Hello, I'm starting early only because I need to load my slides and it always takes me a few seconds to find them. Okay, all right, good. I started a minute early. Hello. Hi Monica, hi Martha. Well, welcome. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes, actually maybe 30 seconds. I always like to give people a little bit of chance to hop on. Tonight's class is on hormone balancing, kind of a very popular, awesome topic. This is one of my favorites next to, I guess you could say, the sugar class that I just did a couple weeks ago. And yeah, hormone balancing, that's the next step for so many. They're just like, help, I need guidance, I don't understand. So, hi, okay. So it's 8 o'clock and I'm just gonna get started right on time because this is another action-packed class of great information. And I understand if people have to come and go, that's just how it is. You can come back and watch it. I save these and I put them into my YouTube channel. And so what's great about my classes is that you can speed me up, pause, come back, take notes. And so that's why I don't mind if you have to bop off here and there. So you are in the right place at the right time because we are going to be discussing how to balance your hormones. And it's going to be so good, you guys, okay? So I'm going to just start diving right into my slides so that we can get going on this wonderful topic. I'm going to throw up a couple memes here. If you can relate to any of these, you are in the right place. Let's just say you're having your period, or if you're not, don't worry, I have a slide for those who are done with their menstrual cycle. But if you can relate to having hormone issues, I think at some point in our life as a woman, we have dealt with all sorts of period issues. The week before our period, we're crying, we're mad, we're irritated, we're getting bloated, we're breakouts galore. And then you're like, who am I? I don't even know who I am. And like you can have a moment where you can just have somebody just say the slightest little thing the week before your menstrual cycle, and right, it's like all explosions, right? Or crying, or right? And so I always have to apologize to the husband, or I used to, because I have been working on my own balancing of hormones. But it was, once a month, it just always happened. We would get into the biggest fights, and maybe some of you gals can relate. But it was just like, you weren't yourself. You were like, I don't know why, I'm just like rageful, and I just want to like get mad and then cry in the next moment, and then I need chocolate, and then like, I hate you, husband, but hold me. Yep, that is our hormones. And hopefully you guys will get a chance to understand what makes us tick and why that's happening. Because guess what? That is actually not normal. Okay? And I can tell you firsthand that was a source of many fights in my marriage until I worked on actually balancing my hormones, but I didn't realize how hot of a mess I was, okay? Now, if you're done with your period, ladies, those who still have their period, don't worry, because being menopausal is also not a piece of cake, okay? And so usually when you are in menopause, that typically means all your hormones are actually coming down from going into a cycle that gives you the period in the first place. And we're going to talk all about that. I have wonderful charts because I want you gals to walk away with understanding how our hormones actually work and what's normal. But yes, I'm here for my menopause gals too. I'm not forgetting about you because either way, if you're a woman from age 12, if you start to have your period from age 12 to, past your period, this hormone stuff matters. And you want to know how to own your health, because let's face it, every single day we are a different person hormonally. And I don't think many people realize that about women. And that's why it's so complicated sometimes to kind of address hormone issues, okay? All right, so we're going to get right into some facts and stats. And, all of us have suffered, whether it was early on in our period getting started, whether it was before children, after children, before menopause, you name it, we have suffered. And not just once, probably multiple times, and or actually all the time. And so you're not alone. But one of my biggest, I guess you could say, concerns that maybe many of us don't think about, by having these hormone imbalances, we often suffer silently because we just think there's something wrong with us, or like, oh, it's just, it's like, oh, I'm hormonal and I'm mad, or I'm bloated, or I have period cramps, just all these things that come with hormone imbalance, and you just write it off as like, that's normal, but I'm just going to suffer silently because nobody's telling me that's not normal. They're all telling me that's normal. Well, it's not, okay? And so we have to understand, you're not supposed to have cramps during your period. You're supposed to have your period be maybe about 4 to 5 days on average. You're not supposed to have headaches around your period. You're not supposed to have bloating. You're not supposed to have fibrocystic breasts or tenderness of the breast. So that, I'm probably blowing your minds, right? But it is important for you guys to know that our bodies are beautifully and wonderfully made, and we need to know how to support them because, and I'm sorry that it cut out, long term, it starts to kick us in the butt in other ways, okay? So this is, these are facts that I get all over the internet, and this is from drjockers.com. Great resource for anything hormone. But he's saying, as a species, we are on a fast track to extinction, says Ori Hofmaker, it's covered, author of the Anti-Estrogenic Diet. In the past few decades, men have lost 50% of their sperm count, and within only one generation. The average man's sperm count and testosterone have dropped by 20%. So although this class is for balancing hormones for women, keep in mind a lot of the things I'm going to talk about actually are affecting men in addition. And then women, we're no better, right? So staggering figures show that most women today are suffering from female disorders, and 3 out of 10 women between the ages of 35 to 60 will develop breast cancer. So those are pretty high numbers. We don't like those numbers. So you guys are here to figure out how do we prevent that for you or loved ones. And so I have goals to kind of get through just to keep us all on track, because there's so much to share, and I just have to find my slide. They're not in order when I have them saved into my phone here, and so I'm always having to kind of find them. Where did that go? Yeah, I wish that was one thing when I save them to my phone, they would go in order. There it is. Okay, so goals. We want to understand how our female cycle works. You want to know what your hormones do. You want to understand what your symptoms mean. And then you want to understand the causes. And then from that, we're going to talk about how to gain your life back. Okay? That sounds easy enough, right? And so welcome for those who don't know me. I'm Dr. Faye Schumann, and I'm a practicing chiropractor. And I've been doing nutrition and health and wellness and all sorts of things for the past 15 plus years. Little background story, my dad had stage 4 cancer he got cured of. I had multiple sclerosis that I healed myself from, and those will be different classes for another day. But for those who don't know me, that's kind of a little bit of my background. And then I am just super passionate about how I can get people healthy and well. That's my mission and goal in life. I just want people living out their best, and it's all about education and hand-holding, and that is my goal with you guys tonight. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. So I had those goals. The one thing that you have to understand about being a female, now it's covered up, but it says the female trifecta. You can see that it's kind of like a triangle happening there. Your adrenal glands, your thyroid gland, and your ovaries all connect to each other talking-wise hormonally. So we often see as practitioners when someone is having hormone issues, they will also be having thyroid issues and adrenal issues. Vice versa, if somebody's having adrenal issues from being super stressed out, just kind of on the run, eventually their adrenal glands will affect the thyroid and the ovaries. And then same with the thyroid. If somehow we develop thyroid issues, whether there's some genetic component or toxic exposure, that too will affect the ovaries and the adrenals. So it's kind of a mind blow, whoa, I didn't know that, right? No wonder I feel like a hot mess, because when you have one area affected, it goes to the other, okay? The other two. And in the middle, I have a little star, and it says gut and liver, okay? So your digestive tract, right? So one of the things that really controls health is what you eat and what you break down and digest and absorb. And then your liver is what does a lot of things for you. Your liver is what's so important for thyroid conversion of hormones. Your liver makes estrogen, breaks down estrogen, has to clear out the bad estrogens, and then the adrenals also create their own stress metabolites that the liver has to detoxify. So your gut and your liver are very, very critical, and we're going to talk about that later. But we have to give you guys an order of importance when it comes to how to balance your hormones. Now, if you've been following me on my Instagram lives for the last, I guess you could say 2 months, because we've been doing these classes every 2 weeks, I have started us off with the order of importance when it comes to managing your health overall. Now, if you've missed any of those, go back and watch, because we can't even get to balancing hormones, that's step number 5, until you have managed your stress. That's a huge one. I can tell you how to do hormone balancing, I can tell you what supplements to take, but if you are chronically stressed out, it will not matter. It is just going to wreak havoc, right? Because that adrenal glands, because you got to help those guys out, because it's going to keep affecting the hormones and the thyroid, right? So you have to manage your stress. I have a great class on that. That was the very first one I did. Managing sleep, very important, the second one, because if you're not sleeping, you're going to hijack any body healing. I don't care what it is. If you feel like you can get 5-6 hours of sleep, you're going to be kidding yourself, okay? That's just, you can't do it long term, okay? So manage sleep, go back and watch that. The third one, I just mentioned, this was one of my favorite other topics to talk on, is how to quit sugar, okay? And so many people are like, I just sugar, I love it too much, and I'm with you on that. And in that class, I talk about how addicted I was to sugar. And the reason I had to give it up was because I wanted to heal my multiple sclerosis, okay? Actually, I don't want to call it my multiple sclerosis because I don't identify with it anymore, right? I was healed from a burden that was happening to my body, and I learned how to kick it, right? By managing sugar, all right? So that one's a really good one to go back and watch. And then the one from 2 weeks ago was on digestive support and also then your liver support, okay? If you are not pooping, if you are not having nice, beautiful bowel movements at least once a day, and that they're big, I was explaining in this class, I want banana shapes and maybe 2 banana, right? A long, big bowel movement. You know you are removing all sorts of toxins and excreting the stuff that your body does not need. And especially if you want balanced hormones, you need to be pooping well, because your body gets rid of all the estrogens that are too much in your system and poops them out. If you are not pooping well, and I keep saying that, I'm so sorry. If you are not bowel movementing well, it recirculates into your system in a very toxic level, okay? So gut health is huge for balancing hormones. And like I said, those are on my Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel. You can just search me up. It's just called Faith Schumann. It's just super easy. I'm starting to get more time to populate my videos. So some of the stuff is from years ago that is on there. So you might laugh at some of the old stuff I have on there. But nonetheless, at least I put it up on YouTube for you guys to watch. All right, so we need to jump right into understanding the hormones, because that is now step 5. How you guys doing? Little wave? I love it. I love all the friends on. This is awesome. I was hoping to see if there'd be any men that would jump on, but chances are, I don't know. We'll see. No. Oh. Maybe. Okay. Maybe. Dan? Hello. Welcome. You're here for your wife. I know it. Okay. So, we are going to talk about how to understand the phases of the menstrual cycle. Most of us, oh, good, Josh is back. Josh, I'm so proud of you. You're such a good husband. Most of us women, we kind of understand, like we kind of understand there's a 28-day cycle. We know like we have a period, and then we have like the weeks leading up before ovulation, and then we ovulate, and then there's the weeks leading after to before we have our period, okay? So those all have a typical range of days that they should fall within. So your very first day of your period is the shedding of the uterine lining, right? Everything's coming out, and that's day 0. That can go, on average, some women, up to 7 days, but those in the health and wellness like to see it at about 5 to 6 days. Typically what that means is then you have kind of a healthy response of hormones that are not too high, so that your body's not bleeding out too much. So that's kind of like okay, if I'm having longer periods or irregular periods, there might be something I might need to check into, because you should on average have monthly cycles that fall on about, every day's a little bit different. You can have them be every 25 days, every 26 days, up to every 32 days. But some of us can fluctuate a few days here and there, and that's not horrible. We traveled, or if there was like some kind of extra stress, yeah, you can give or take a couple days. But if you are skipping months of periods, or if your periods are going 2 weeks long, you definitely want to investigate deeply, okay? The follicular phase is the next stage, and I'm going to show you guys really cool graphs. That's where you have estrogen rising. That's where the uterus has to get all ready and pretty for an egg to be released. So then at ovulation, right, mid-cycle, but not everybody does ovulation at mid-cycle. So sometimes you have to do ovulation kits to know when you actually do ovulate, and that happens with people. It doesn't mean you're abnormal if you ovulate earlier or later. But in general, it's mid-cycle, and that's when the egg is released, okay? And then that's where technicality, that's when people can have when you get pregnant, okay? And then after that, if there is no pregnancy, then your body starts to create the hormone changes, and I'm going to show these in the next slides, where then your body prepares to shed the uterine lining to then start all over again to make another baby. So it's a beautiful cycle. We're so blessed that we get to do this, once a month. Some women would say, no, that's not a blessing. They would say it's a curse. I fully believe it is actually beneficial for us to have a female cycle. And if we are, telling people that, no, you don't need to have a period, just take this birth control, you don't need a period. Well, I disagree. Our bodies were made to be able to detox and shed and have the ebbs and flows of our body communicating with all, right, the adrenals and the thyroid and the sex hormones. It's a beautiful connection, okay? And so I don't believe in disrupting it because that's just, our bodies weren't made for that, okay? So here's a cool chart. This might look like, woo, what is she talking about? I want you guys to have a baseline because you want to know what is supposed to be happening in a normal female cycle, right? Normal. So I was showing you at the very beginning, you can see where it says week 1, and it's called the follicular phase. And that's where, if you look at the little kind of pinkish line, like the kind of hot pink line, that is estrogen. And you see that estrogen is rising up and it peaks right at ovulation. That is good. We want that. That is where estrogen is our friend. And that's where, if you ever notice, there's certain days of the month you have like this glow about you. You have all this energy. You like feel strong, okay? That's because your body is having the estrogen go up to say, hey, guess what you get to do? You get to make a baby. And so then that is why estrogen is your friend, okay? Now, mid-cycle, the estrogen is supposed to drop down because then technically, if you were to get pregnant, that second line, that's kind of a reddish orangish line, see how it stayed low at the very first 2 weeks and then it rises up after, kind of like into week 3? That is supposed to go up. That's called progesterone going up, because if you were to get pregnant, the progesterone keeps you pregnant. And you want healthy levels of progesterone, okay? And then you can see estrogen does do a little high up again underneath there. But the key, if you see that, the estrogen is below the progesterone, and that is normal. And I'm going to show you in the next few slides what's been happening with women, okay? But at the end of week 4, see how all the hormones go down? That just then signals to the body or the uterus to then shed the blood, shed the uterine lining, okay? And then start all over. Now, I have to say one thing that's very, very important, which I'm going to talk about testosterone here in just a second. If you do not ovulate, you will not produce progesterone, okay? So if your body is being tricked into, whether it's on birth control, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but if it's on birth control, it's telling your body to not ovulate. So then you do not make progesterone. That is one of the biggest things. Ovulation equals progesterone making, okay? And then one of the cool little things there with the testosterone, if you see how it's like yellow and like low, that's our sex drive, ladies, and also our muscle building, okay? And so you can see what's kind of cute, right at that mid-cycle, like with the ovulation, see how the little yellow line goes bloop up? That is a surge of testosterone, and that is, I'm just gonna admit, during those like 3 days, my husband can do no wrong. He's the best in the world. He looks extra cute. He smells amazing, right? Okay, so that is my hormones saying, guess what? Guess what we need to do, okay? So if you ever have those feelings, now you know that is good old hormones doing their job. Now I'm gonna move on to the next slide, because now that you have like a little bit of a baseline of what a normal cycle looks like. So I have it there to kind of remind you. Now this is a different chart, but it says what your cycle should look like. All you need to know is estrogen goes up mid-cycle, it's supposed to go down, bloop up again. Progesterone is supposed to come up and be higher than estrogen. That's normal. What is happening with a lot of women today is the estrogen stays high and the progesterone is staying low. And so you can see that in that bottom graph where the blue line, the estrogen is staying higher and the progesterone didn't even like make a peak up, okay? That right there is one of the biggest causes for all sorts of women issues. The PMS, the bloating, the breast tenderness, the acne, the irritability, not being able to stay pregnant, miscarriage, what else? Just trying to think. Oh, brain fog, anxiety. Anxiety is a big one, okay? So those are our typical female hormones that people are like, oh, I didn't realize that's the case. That wow, okay, so my hormones really do make a difference in how I truly feel on a daily basis. And so one of the things to note here, and I'm sorry these graphs are kind of small, but you can definitely go into drjackers.com and find more of this information. But as we age, our hormone levels decline, okay? So when you're in your 20s, everything's all fun, everything's all beautiful, you can eat whatever you want, you have beautiful glowing skin, you know, and you don't necessarily typically have all the hormone issues, but you can definitely start having the red flags where painful periods, irritability, acne, right? Those are all warning signs that if you keep this lifestyle going, you're gonna have even more issues down the road, okay? But if you look at this little chart, it says estrogen starts to decline, and then progesterone starts to decline, and then you can see testosterone declines, and then melatonin, which is a thing that helps us to sleep and have good sleep, that also declines. And guess right where it hits? Look at that. In your 50s, like your 45 to 50 range. That's what we call premenopause. And then those who don't understand what menopause is, if you're young and you're joining me, menopause is technically where you have not had a period for 12 months, okay? And then that's basically your hormones are kind of going down, down, down because you're done with your reproductive years, okay? But those have their own set of issues. And I just, you know, I really want my patients, and I want you guys to know that you can help transition with all these stages, but you can also support it so you don't feel horrible. And there's all sorts of tips and tricks that we're going to talk about. But I want to have one more graph here. You can tell I'm kind of a science nerd. Yep, I'm a science nerd, but that's all right. So hormone changes during menopause. Now, if you see this top graph, it says estrogen, or the top line, and then the progesterone. You can see that there's this big dip as you kind of once you hit your 40s, and the issue with what you're starting to hear, the words being thrown around, it's called estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency. And that's basically where estrogen stays the more value, and then progesterone is the lesser value. And that's supposed to happen during certain times of the month, but when it doesn't, like the last 2 weeks of your period, or your like after you ovulate, right? And you don't get that surge of progesterone, that's where you're going to start getting all these hot flashes. If you're starting to head into the menopause stage, you're going to have, infertility, like all those things that I mentioned before. And so this is just really good information for you guys to understand the gaps between these hormone levels is what causes women's issues, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now you need to understand, what is the point of progesterone and estrogen? What is it there for? They're both there for a reason, and we want them both. Neither one of them is bad, but you need to have them in the correct ratio, okay? So knowing how your hormones work for you long term is literally going to save you so much pain and suffering and grief and disease and lost work days. Like, this is so valuable and huge to your health that you owe it to yourself to know how your hormones work, okay? Because if you can figure out the red flags as they come along, you're like, wait, that's not normal. I might need to seek help, and I might need to change up some dietary things. because I want you guys to have ownership of your health. I do not want you to be reliant on a system that is just going to be giving you medication, okay, and not causing or not fixing the root cause, okay? That's my biggest goal for you guys. Empowerment, right? So estrogen, now we need it, but it also, if it gets out of control sometimes, like we need it for it to make the uterine lining, but it also can increase body fat too much. But we want body fat, right? Because you want estrogen to have, that our fat actually does make some estrogen. So you do want that, because if you have zero body fat, you have a hard time actually creating estrogen, okay? If it's out of balance, it can cause headaches and migraines. It can cause depression, blood clots. That's one of the biggest issues with estrogen dominance, is with like blood clots and strokes. Decreases your libido, really affects your blood sugar, definitely increases your risk for endometrial cancer and breast cancer if your estrogen is long-term high dominance and you can't clear it out correctly, okay? So stick with me on that, because down the road I have to teach you how your body clears estrogen out correctly. Progesterone is kind of like the best friend to estrogen, but it's like the best friend that keeps her in line, okay? Without progesterone, estrogen just kind of does what it wants, and it can be proliferated and kind of go and like make the uterus become more, I guess you could call it endometriosis, fibrocystic breasts, PCOS. There's all these things that if you don't have progesterone helping, or other dietary lifestyle facts can affect it too, you can get imbalanced, okay? So progesterone does help to maintain that uterine lining, helps with fat burning, woohoo! It is an antidepressant, which is so cool. One of the neat things that when you have progesterone go up after ovulation, if you ever noticed you're calm, you kind of just feel good, you're like, yeah, life's good. The reason for that, let's just say you had gotten pregnant. Well, you're not about to go jump off a cliff. You're not about to go like, go on a roller coaster. You are going to just like, nope, I'm going to stay calm, because you're going to support a life in you. And so your progesterone does that for you. So it just kind of chills you out. Helps your thyroid function better. It reduces blood clots, restores your libido. I've had women where they get their progesterone levels elevated and their sex drive comes back and they're like, thank you. And the husbands are like, oh my goodness, yes, right? So helps blood sugar, and then it protects from endometrial and breast cancer. So you can see it's like the best friend that like lifts up, her girlfriend. So you want good progesterone levels. I hope that makes sense. All right, and then a couple more things on long-term estrogen dominance, because this is a term, maybe you've heard about it, it's getting thrown around more here and there. But if you have basically those higher levels of estrogen and then the lower levels of progesterone, it will lead to, contributes to breast and endometrial cancer cell growth, while progesterone slows cancer cell growth. Studies have indicated that progesterone deficiency in premenopausal, meaning like women in my category, like my age is 40, I'm 44, and once I hit menopause, what it could be my 50s, who knows. So I'm premenopause. So basically progesterone deficiency would increase my risk of breast cancer by 5.4 times. That's kind of a big deal. And so my goal is to make sure that I'm always watching where my hormones are at, what I'm doing with food-wise, so there's all sorts of cool things I'm going to tell you guys about how to monitor your hormones. Now, why this affects us long-term, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about, remember that triangle, the female trifecta? So here's what happens to us. And that's why I was saying, go watch the stress management and the sleep management and blood sugar control. If you have high stress long-term, you're going to be kind of whack-a-mole, hitting things up, and you're going to just be kind of like a hormonal hot mess. Now, long-term high stress decreases your progesterone, right? I just want to sit right there and just pause. Let you all take that in. High stress long term decreases progesterone. That was me. And I can guarantee that might be some of you all that have joined me. And so I just want like stress management. Oh, she was talking about that. So if I can manage my stress, my progesterone levels will actually want to start to balance out. But if you think about this, if you are stressed out, your body says, there's no way I can make a baby, so I'm not going to ovulate. And then usually it's the case. You don't ovulate, you don't make progesterone, okay? So good progesterone levels block stress, by the way. So somehow if you have created yourself with having healthy progesterone levels, remember I was talking about how it can create you to just be like, oh, I'm chill, I'm relaxed. That's because your progesterone is protective for stress. It doesn't want you jumping off cliffs, right? When it's like technically could be pregnant. So I hope that makes sense right there. I'm going to keep going. So low progesterone also then lets estrogen stay high. And remember how I was saying high estrogen increase for clots, strokes, cancer, gaining like fat in your system where you don't want it, okay? High estrogen also creates insulin sensitivity, meaning that you maybe could eat a cookie in your younger years and not have it affect you as much, whereas now you eat it and it's like your body's like, whoa, what is that? And your blood sugar spikes, okay? So high estrogen is bad for your insulin levels. High progesterone is the opposite. It helps to create insulin resistance. Okay, so I hope you guys are seeing kind of a cool little trend here, how progesterone is literally the BFF, right? Now I'll keep going. High estrogen makes your thyroid start functioning low, okay? And your thyroid, if you don't know much about it, that's what helps your metabolism. That's what helps you to be able to burn fat consistently. So women will often start gaining weight as they get older in life because their estrogen is staying high, their progesterone is staying low, and you start to see us women kind of do this. We start to fill out and we kind of have like a man's body, okay? And then if you are so busy and you're running around and you're stressed out, you have a high stress job or who knows what, and you're not eating, guess what that does? That also creates stress, okay? Because I'll have women say, I don't eat anything and why am I so overweight? Because honey, I'm sorry, you're not eating. You're living a high stress life. And you're not nourishing your body. So your body thinks it's starving. So it's going to hang on to anything it has and it's not going to let it go, okay? So that's where you have to figure out the stress management and then maybe eating a couple more meals or possibly eating like more snacks throughout the day to say, hey body, you're not starving, okay? And then high stress creates belly fat from cortisol. And maybe you've seen those commercials or you've heard it be talked about. It's that donut around the midsection. That is because cortisol levels stay high, elevated for too long, and then it just lays down belly fat, okay? And guess what? Belly fat produces more estrogen. Ooh, right? So I think you guys can understand why figuring out stress, sleep, what kind of foods you're eating really then start to affect your hormone levels. Okay, moving on. So I want to tell you guys what are the signs of estrogen dominance, okay? And there's a lot, but 70% of us women have definitely experienced this at some point in our life. And it's going to be your mood swings, your anxiety, depression, weight gain. Periods aren't regular, they're painful, they're heavy, thyroid issues, brain fog. That one's a big one. Like, have you ever figured out, like, why am I so foggy? Yeah, it's your hormones. PMS, which is premenstrual syndrome, blood sugar issues, no sex drive, you can't sleep, you're bloated, you're having infertility issues, your endometrial lining is like inflamed and painful, and sometimes you have to get some people will end up getting hysterectomies because of it, or they have to go in and do laparoscopic surgery and kind of clear up all the scar tissue from endometriosis. It's very painful. Hair loss, headaches, and migraines are very, very common in estrogen dominance. And then this one's a new one, histamine intolerance. Typically, you think of like histamine as like hay fever, or like, you have, runny nose, itchy eyes, puffy face. That's a histamine response. Well, estrogen dominance can create that too, and that's just crazy. Okay, so if you ever notice during, maybe certain times of the month, maybe you can't breathe as well, or maybe you're having more diarrhea, or your face is more flushed, okay? So that's a histamine response that estrogen can cause, and it's just so crazy. And it can make you more swollen, right? Now, progesterone deficiency, we have to talk about that, right? Because that's the best friend. Same thing. It's going to cause PMS, cramps. Your breasts will be fibrocystic and tender. Infertility, miscarriage, irregular cycle. It's like the same thing, right? So you can see the two of them, and I'm not going to keep going because they're pretty much almost the same thing. But either way, if you guys can relate to any of the symptoms that I'm listing off, you know, like, okay, all right, I need to maybe ask for help somewhere, or go back and watch some of my videos. But I'm going to tell you this information is out there in copious amounts of how to balance your hormones, okay? And so I don't want you guys to think, oh my goodness, well, I don't know where to even begin. I tell you what, this is like 80% of the women that I've been talking about, 80% of the women deal with this. So guess what? There's a million books out there on how to help yourself. And so that's where I would suggest, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good, I need to dive more into this. Yeah, good books, okay? Now, we want to understand why all this is happening, okay? Because I'm telling you all the bad news, I'm telling you all the, oh my goodness, I'm doomed, right? No, I want you to now be like, take a breath in, be like, okay, all right, I know I have some issues. I have issues. I'm constantly working on my issues. If I wasn't, it wouldn't be life, right? So how do we kind of backtrack, slow down, and say, where do I begin? Okay. Overall imbalances to hormone, the causes: high stress, high cortisol. And you guys saw that on that whack-a-mole slide. Poor sleep, because if you're not getting good sleep, guess what that does to your cortisol? It messes it up. So sleep and stress go hand in hand. And that's where you really want to start. If you're just like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what to do, start with your stress and your sleep. Then we say go to blood sugar control. And I'm not going to talk about that today because I already did in very much length a couple weeks ago on blood sugar management. It was really good, if I do say so myself. I get excited about sugar talking. That one is huge, very critical. If you literally just did those 3 things, you're going to start taking care of hormones in a very fast, exponential way, and other things that you're dealing with. You'll just be like, oh my goodness, I had no idea, just those 3 things. And then as a result, what's cool is sometimes then your gut and your liver functions start to do better, because you're not putting your body in this fight or flight state where you can't digest. You're not throwing bad food at it where it can't digest, right? It's just inflammatory. So then you'll see then if you're still needing help, definitely gut and liver function. Remember, I want you pooping well. And then it's kind of covered up, but it says not eating well. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's foods that really do throw us into a tizzy, and they're called inflammatory foods. And they're going to be your typical dairy, wheat, soy, corn, rice, your preservatives, your food dyes, your sugars, and and I don't know, I'm probably missing a couple others, but those are the top inflammatory foods, okay? And then toxins and birth control actually really can throw us off on our hormones, okay? I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. Those are the next big things. But I want you to know excessive alcohol, caffeine, and sugar also throw us off. So right there, if you just kind of were like, okay, these are things that I could probably just start checking off the list of how I manage. And then slowly but surely, your body will take it and run with it, okay? And that's what I had to do for my own self. My hormones were completely just like all over the board, crazy, especially after having kids. I didn't know who I was. There was a time where I was driving down the road and all of a sudden I started having anxiety attack. And then I was just like, then I was getting like emotional over something someone in my life had said. And it wasn't even anything big. And then I remember getting into screaming matches with my husband. And then I remember having major bloating issues. And I was gaining weight. And starting to get headaches. So it was just one of those things where it's like, what is going on with me? This is not normal. And so I had to kind of backtrack of, and this was all before I quit sugar. This was definitely still after the multiple sclerosis diagnosis. And so I was in this phase of like a 5-year span of figuring out my hormones, my gut, sugar, stress, sleep, okay? So a lot of what I share with you is stuff that I've had to do on my own life and my own journey to heal. And the best part is it's working. And so I get excited because then I get to share with others and then it starts working for them. And then there's other practitioners, it's working for them. You know, so people it's coming out more and more with good information that this is not novel new things. It's just we're in social media world where you get to have this information at your hand, okay, like literally in your hand. So moving on, those are the big things that cause us to have hormone imbalances. I wanted to talk about the toxin because this is one area that I think a lot of people are not super always aware of, is that estrogens, fake estrogens, are everywhere. And this is one of those spots that people are like, what? I had no idea that this could actually be messing me up. So if you're new to this term, it's called xenoestrogens, okay? Fake estrogens. And then what they do is my little chart there, you can see the fake estrogen goes in and binds to where then the real estrogen needs to be. And the fake means then it can't actually do the correct signal to tell your body how to behave properly. Xenoestrogens are in so many things, unfortunately. We're not necessarily going to be able to get away from them 100%, but we can be aware of them. And then if we support our body to detox and be able to eliminate, these xenoestrogens then don't like wreak havoc on our health. Like it doesn't take over us. Like we get to take over them, right? So xenoestrogens, they're in the lining of tin cans. Okay, so you can actually start looking for cans that'll say BPA free. Okay, plastics. Now I talked about this a little bit more so in my digestive talk 2 weeks ago, that there's certain plastics that are very, very harmful to us. And if you can remember to look for on, when it says the little recycle triangle, you really want to avoid 3, 6, and 7. So it's the numbers 3, 6, and 7. It's the recycled triangle and it has a number in it. And so like the other day, for example, I got myself a treat and got myself a coffee from a local coffee chain. And the top cover, it was brown, but the recycle lid was a 6. And so I'm drinking hot coffee through that, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I took the lid off and just drank it plain. So it's just like, it's everywhere. What do we do? Then the next one is fragrances. It's your synthetic fragrances. You know what I'm talking about. For me, I don't even bother to go down that aisle where there's the detergents and the fabric softeners and the sheets that you put in your laundry. I do not even deal with that. I buy my laundry detergent from special companies, or if we do buy it and we're like in a pinch, it's going to be no dyes, no fragrances, no toxic chemicals in it, okay? Because those do get into our clothes. The smell, right? Just the fragrance from our detergents, perfumes, our shampoos, the candlesticks, or not, sorry, the candles, you know, like your, what is it? Bed Bath & Beyond? Is that it? No. Bath and Body Works, thank you. That's like, so I don't know if it's better now, but I remember back in the day, I couldn't even go into those stores without like my body be like, what is this, right? Because those are all xenoestrogens. They're fake fragrances that are molecular, and then we breathe them in and our body takes in the molecules, and yes, it really can affect us hormonally. And then you think about all the, like you're spraying the perfumes, right, at your neck. Well, guess what's right there? Your thyroid, okay? So these are just things to think about. All the stuff you're putting on you and in your home that you're breathing in really can affect your hormones, okay? And then there's pesticides and herbicides. I definitely believe in the organic if you can. And then what else do I have in there? Oh yeah, even bleached feminine products. So there's different healthy alternatives. There's underwear that you can just buy. There's these things called Diva cups. There's organic feminine products, right? So it's just, they're everywhere. And that right there, if you could just work on just getting rid of the toxins in your life. I have lots of miracle stories that people talk about. And then, okay, so Wendy just said Branch Basics is amazing. Yeah, that is the beauty. There are so many amazing companies out there that are, you know, it's like the toxin-free movement, which I'm so glad, right? And it's one of those things that, like, I hate to say it, but like if you can eat it, right, then it's supposed to be safe. But if you can't eat it, why would you put it on your body? That's just me. But that's just, you all know what I'm talking about. Now, I have to talk about birth control because that was on my list of some of the things that can cause imbalances in our hormones. And it's kind of one of those things that I get a little bit like sad. I'm just going to say sad because it typically happens to the younger patients, or maybe women like after babies, where they're, you know, you go to the doctor because you're having all these hormonal issues, and you walk out being prescribed a birth control pill. And it wasn't necessarily for, you know, preventing pregnancy. It was, here, take this will balance your hormones. And that's the part that makes me sad. It's like, well, isn't there something better that you could help the person with their acne, their bloating, their period cramps? Do you have other options? No, this is the option. So we have so many young women and or women who are, you know, just having these hormonal issues. Here, birth control. And we all know that that is not the answer to balance your hormones. So kind of letting you know about birth control. The whole point of it is to prevent you from ovulating, thus getting pregnant. Fine, if you're using that because you want to prevent pregnancy, I'm not going to like go down that road. But if you're using it to control your hormones, if you think about it for a second, you're not ovulating. And if you're not ovulating, guess what you're not making? You're not making progesterone, okay? And what was the biggest thing I was talking about? That's super, our good old buddy, our BFF. Yeah, progesterone, right? And so it turns off our hormone function, and then you get all sorts of issues long-term for these women, okay? And let's see, question. Equals laundry detergent clean. I think it's one of the better ones. I think if the fragrance, you just have to look for mostly the fragrances and like no phthalates and things like that are going to be more on the toxic chemical. And I think that one's a good company. There's so many that I can't keep up with them. I get mine from Young Living. I like the Thieves laundry detergent from them. That's who I get mine from. Okay, now birth control pills, if you didn't know this, they're either made of estrogen or progestin, or just progestin alone. And so the Mirena IUD, that's a very popular one that women will use. And the goal of that is that it prevents you from ovulating. Okay, the chemical in that, you don't ovulate. And then, like I said, you're not going to make progesterone, and then you're not going to have the long-term protective benefits for your health. Okay, and then they say if you're over 35, if you're smoking or vaping, if you have a history of clotting or liver disease, migraines, high blood pressure, you shouldn't even be taking birth control. And so just keep those in mind as just kind of like, oh my goodness, do I know someone? Is that me? There's a lot of other ways, other methods of birth control prevention. And, I'll just share what my husband and I personally have done for 20 plus years. I've never been on birth control. My cycle, I knew it pretty well. And I would know when I would ovulate, and we would just be very careful around the ovulation time. You have the condoms, you have withdrawal method, you have all sorts of different ways that you can not have to rely on synthetic hormones to prevent a pregnancy, if that makes sense. So that's what we did. It worked for us, but everybody's in a different boat. Okay? All right. You guys doing good? You're a great audience. Good questions so far. And we're cruising along. I'm so proud of us. We're doing so good. Okay, so here is where we get to switch gears on, well, what do I do? Where do I begin? Okay, I've already given you the whole lowdown of go back and watch my talks on stress management and sleep and sugar and gut balancing. I've already told you about that, but that is truly, go back and start there. And once you've kind of walked along and you're like, oh my goodness, this is cool, I'm getting this, come back and then start be like, okay, now I'm ready for hormone balancing. Okay, now I'm a big proponent and a big believer of telling you can do this. So often in life we are hit from every avenue, every angle of stress. Things happen, family issues, sickness, the whole pandemic thing really threw everyone for a loop, job issues, and this is life, you guys. Things happen, and along the way, you end up, your health gets put to the side. Am I right? Everybody can probably raise their hand and relate. And I get that does happen. If along the lines here somewhere you have set up a good pattern of how you manage your stress, really being diligent about getting sleep, you can definitely be diligent about what kind of sugar and simple carbs you're putting into your body. And yeah, there's gonna be those times where you just want to give me the sugar, I don't care, right? We all have that. But know that you gotta get back on that horse again and say, okay, I matter, I got this, my health matters. Because if I'm not healthy, that's the biggest issue. Because then if you're not healthy, you can't do what you were put on this earth to do. And I'm a big let's do this, you guys. I don't want you sick. I don't want you reliant on a broken medical system. I don't want you being bankrupt because you're running from doctor to doctor on what medication should I be on next. I don't want you being energy robbed of your time and your excitement for life and what you give to your children and your family. I don't want you to be robbed of that, okay? So I want you to say, you know what? She's right. I matter. I'm not going to give up on myself. I'm going to find somebody to help me with this because I don't want to do it alone, right? Because sometimes when we do it alone, we kind of start to get that stinking thinking and negative, like, I'm going to give up. But when you have a buddy or a friend or someone that you know has your back, I tell you, man, it is awesome, okay? And then the big thing I want you to know, imperfect action is a legit thing. Anything that you do towards your health, and you might think you have to be perfect about it, that's not the case. Imperfect action is the action, okay? Whether you go to bed at instead of 10:30, go to bed at 10:20. Hey, 10 minutes earlier, that's an imperfect action, but you know what? It's going to add up, okay? And so that little chart, you can't really see it, but it's kind of a little chart saying, healing, we want it to go in a straight line up, like perfect, and like get me there as fast as possible, which is, by the way, many of us ask for the drug because we just don't want to deal with our issues. We don't have time. We don't have the energy. Give me the drug, right? That is the system we've been trained in. But in reality, healing is kind of this, right? But you will get there because you know you are worth it and you're not going to stop, okay? And if you ever need where you're like, Dr. Faith, I need some encouragement, kick my butt, tell me I'm valuable, I will do that for you, okay? So the first thing we have to do, I have 6 steps for you guys to do for hormone balancing. I already talked to you about watching my classes, the previous ones, and you guessed it, diet first, right? You are what you eat, right? Yeah. But it's also, you're doing it 3 times a day if you are being good and eating multiple meals. So you have to think, what am I eating? Is it going to help the cause or harm the cause? Is it going to benefit me or not? Okay, so those are just decisions that you have to make when you want to balance your life health-wise. Now, on this little cute graphic, I have all the common foods that if you go and you read into these hormone balancing books, these are the common foods that really are nourishing and help with hormone balancing. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just go from the top and down. So that first slide, it is bone broth. That is very healing to the gut. It's very nourishing. And there's all sorts of minerals in there and electrolytes, okay? So bone broth is a very common thing I make in my house. I will take a whole chicken carcass, organic, and I will put it in my Instant Pot, and I'll put a little apple cider vinegar, and I'll put it on like 2 hours, boop, boop, boop. And then if I've done it well, sometimes I have to do it another 2 hours because something's happened. And I will have beautiful bone broth. And you know it's beautiful when the bones just kind of break easily. Actually, I can like take them and squish them. And the bone marrow just is like, oh, it's in there. So then I knew all the minerals came out. And I tell you what, it is such a good broth. Then I'll make soups with it. We'll just drink it. We'll just take the chicken and the soup and we'll drink it. Even my kiddos are like, Mom, when are you making broth again? And it's really easy with an Instant Pot, okay? You can do it with a slow cooker, but it does take a lot longer. And so the Instant Pot, you can look those up on YouTube. And heck, I would have one on my YouTube, okay, that I made during the pandemic. Okay, so the next one is green tea. That is a very beneficial thing for hormones, okay? I have switched to drinking a lot more green tea, and I also enjoy it iced. And so I will brew some green tea and then throw some ice cubes in it, and then I just sip on that all day long. The green tea has all sorts of benefits for antioxidants, but there's a really cool thing that it does, is it helps your estrogen to kind of convert to not make more testosterone in your body. For some of us women, testosterone can kind of cause us to be more manly, like, more hair, chin hairs, or more like thinning hair, or like our bodies start to get more manly looking. Okay, so that's excess testosterone that can happen in women, and it's called hirsutism. The one behind my picture is called parsley. Parsley is very good for detoxifying and helping the liver. And all things liver is amazing for hormone balance. And I'm going to talk about that in a few slides. The next one is broccoli, so cruciferous vegetables. So broccoli, cauliflower, radishes, Brussels sprouts. It's all those veggies that kind of have that stinky sulfur smell. I think you all know what I'm talking about. That sulfur is very, very, very good for our liver. Okay? The next one is flax seeds. Flax seeds ground up daily for some women are really, really beneficial. Some women, we have to kind of talk about like how much flax you're supposed to get in, but ideally they really like you to have ground flax seeds from day 1 to day 14 of, like that first phase of your cycle, because it has healthy estrogen. It's going to help you to make healthy estrogen, if that makes sense, okay? The picture behind my picture is chocolate, okay? Cocoa, dark cocoa, organic. You want to really make sure you can look up the brands so don't have any heavy metals. And you can take the hot cocoa and put it in your smoothies. You can sprinkle it on things. You can make nummy treats from it, healthy treats, healthy truffles. But the cocoa powder is really good with magnesium and antioxidants, okay? And those antioxidants are very important for liver health. Eggs. Eggs have something called choline. Choline is very vital for liver function. Eggs are also a great source of protein. The next one is arugula. The liver loves bitter things. So arugula is a bitter lettuce, and I love the taste of it. Oh my goodness, I could just eat it all day long. It's just like, I don't know what it is. It's like better than candy for me. Okay. The next one is liver. Now, I don't eat liver. I wish I could get used to it, but instead I take desiccated liver so it's basically dehydrated and put into capsule form. Some people have actually taken like the organic cow liver and they cut it up into little cubes and they stick it in the freezer and they take out a little tiny bit of it and they just gulp it down, and that's their liver kind of supplement for the day, okay? Liver is very nourishing, very nutritious, high in B vitamins, high in vitamin A, high in vitamin D, high in iron, okay, high in CoQ10, very, very nutrient dense. Next one is avocado. We all know how good that is for us. It's a good fat. It's also high in something called glutathione. Our liver loves glutathione. Next one is berries. Berries are high in vitamin C. Your liver needs vitamin C. And then the next one is going to be apple cider vinegar, because we need to digest and break things down when we are eating foods. So apple cider vinegar vinaigrettes. If you want to make little drinks with it, there's all sorts of supplements. Okay, so these are just good ideas. Now, I can't go through every single thing to tell you what to take, but these are just some fun things to start thinking about incorporating into your diet that are actually not that bad. There is a term called seed cycling. This might be a new term for some of you guys. Some people have been doing this for a while because a lot of these seeds have high nutrient values like zinc and magnesium and selenium. And what they do is they take pumpkin seeds and flax seeds, grind them up, and they take a teaspoon to tablespoons, 1 to 2 tablespoons a day, and they eat it for the first 2 weeks. And then once they ovulate, then they'll do sunflower seeds and sesame seeds, and that's then to support the progesterone, okay? So it's kind of a fun little thing that you can do, and there's all sorts of fun recipes out there that people will make little seed protein balls. And usually what they say is like make them fresh, because you know how seeds are when you like freshly grind them and you give it too much time, like maybe keep them in the freezer, some of the fresh oil in those seeds can go rancid. So that's why they suggest to, make them fresh and then maybe freeze them when you want to eat them. These are just fun little ideas for you guys, because food is where we need to start no matter what, because you got to eat. And you might as well be very intentional about just putting these things into your body, okay? Now, like I said, I did not invent any of this. I get to just regurgitate it and then just let you know that it does work. But there's so many cookbooks out there on how to balance your hormones. And they're all going to be very nourishing, high nutrient dense foods, lots of, greens and seeds and lean, healthy meats and good fats. And you're not going to see a lot of sugar. You're not going to see processed grains. You're not going to see anything artificial, right? That makes sense. Our bodies were not made to be eating all this man-made, chemical-laden stuff. So then step 2, because I talked about diet as step number 1. If you are going down that path and you're like, okay, I'm doing a good diet, Dr. Faith, I'm actually doing all that, so thank you, that's really great. Yay me, I'm heading down that path. But you're like, I still know I have some hormone issues. And so I'm trying to find my slide. So sometimes you want to be like, okay, I need to be very specific of what is actually truly happening with me so that I can be like, okay, I need more green tea. I need more cruciferous vegetables. Because there's strategy when it comes to knowing your hormones and what's happening to them. Because everyone is completely different. We're all at different stages. We all have different stress levels. And I've not seen one Dutch test be the same. Everyone has their own story, okay? So I'm going to introduce to you a very common, this is the gold standard of hormone testing. And it's called the Dutch test. Some of you maybe have heard of it before. And if you have, you may be like, oh yeah, the Dutch test. That is like, woo, that's what all the natural healthcare practitioners are talking about. And yes, the Dutch test is amazing. And if you go on to any of the, professional hormone doctors that are natural minded, they are also doing these tests for their patients because they're so good, okay? So there's the thing saying, always test, don't guess. I definitely believe in that, okay? Now, I'm just showing you this little snippet. This is a picture of just the first page of a Dutch test. And you can't see it well. It looks like a bunch of dials. It looks like, oh my gosh, more science, Dr. Faith, what is going on, right? Only the nerdy, geeky people like me like, okay, yeah, this is what this means. But in this one, if you can kind of follow along with me, you can see the person has estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone. And in this person, you can see that their estrogen, like the dial is like really pointed, like that green dial is pointed far away. And then you go to the progesterone and then like the little yellow dial is like pointed way down. And so right off the bat, this person is estrogen dominant and progesterone deficient. And we get to see literally how much of a difference, okay? And then there's the testosterone. They do have higher testosterone, but that we kind of gather later after we balance the estrogen and the progesterone. And then you can kind of see there's a couple other dials like cortisol. And then that one's really important to know how is their stress levels. If you go back and you watch the very first video of me talking on stress management, I share with you my cortisol results, okay? And I share with you what caused it. I wasn't getting sleep because of my dog. Anyways, it's all better. My body's better. My life is better. But it's one of those things where you're doing life and you don't realize one of the things that you're adapting to and accommodating to is actually sometimes harming you, okay? So I let my dog sleep with me and I didn't get any sleep because he kept waking me up. And guess what? That made my cortisol levels through the roof. I have to laugh because it's kind of embarrassing. But at the same time, I was glad I had the Dutch test ran because I would have not thought of that. I would have never thought, oh, my cortisol levels are so messed up until I had that Dutch test ran. And then I was like, why? And then it's just one of those things that dawns on you like, oh, you're not getting sleep. Why? Oh, it's your dog. Okay, so now he sleeps on a chair and all is good. Okay, so here's another Dutch test. You can see that the dials now have gone all the way down for estrogen or the estradiol and the progesterone. this person is in menopause, okay? And so you can see that, they're technically supposed to have their levels be low, but then they're also having issues and symptoms of insomnia, and they're gaining weight, and they're just having all sorts of other issues that they're concerned about. So I have to help this patient support to give her more estrogen and progesterone naturally, okay? So we walked through that with her, and she's doing a lot better. And so she's excited because she says she has a lot more energy now. She's drinking green tea because she was kind of reliant on too much coffee. And so she said, oh my goodness, I'm already noticing difference just with green tea. I like them not having the afternoon crash. So just simple things like that we had to walk through with her. So Dutch testing, I just bring this up because it's so critically important to know where your hormones are at. I do provide this in my clinic. You do not have to be local if you wanted to do the Dutch testing with me. You can just, you message me. I have the test shipped to you. It's a urine test. You just pee on a thing 4 times. And you have to, I would guide you when to do it based off your symptoms and what's going on. But yeah, it's $3.99, and then we get to, it's fun. We get to see what your hormones look like. But if that does interest you, DM me. It's been a really cool test that I have been loving, okay? So that's step 2. If you can do Dutch tests, go for it. If not, let's keep going. Step 3. If you have a really good functional doctor that will run other lab tests for you. Oops, wrong one. Here we go. These are the lab tests that I highly suggest having ran at your primary care doctor, okay? They might not have the Dutch test. If they do, bonus, I will tell you insurance does not cover it. So usually you can use your flex spending or HSA, things like that. But typically then if you go for the other ones I'm going to talk about, you want a full thyroid panel. Okay, this is one of the biggest issues that I run into when it comes to fixing that trifecta, the female trifecta, is the full thyroid gets missed. It's just a general procedure that, you'll go in for your routine blood work, and they'll just run TSH just to see if you have elevated thyroid hormone. Well, that's good. Actually, what ends up happening is a lot of people will have other underlying thyroid issues that'll pop up that would actually show up normal on the TSH. So if you really want the best to just say, hey, how's my thyroid? Is it autoimmune? Is there other things going on? I have in like the little parentheses what you ask for, okay? TSH, T3, T4, free T3, free T4. It's like thyroid peroxide oxidase. It's like an antibody. Thyroglobulin antibody. They're big words. And then reverse T3 and reverse T4. But those ones that were the TPO and the TGAB antibody, those are to see if you would have what's called Hashimoto's, where your system is attacking your thyroid. And remember what I said, if your thyroid is off, it's going to affect your adrenal glands and your sex hormones, okay? We do not want to miss the thyroid, so be very thorough with that. And then there's gut panels you can do to see if you have a parasitic infection, if you have your gut microbiome is off, if you're not digesting foods. That is something I also run, but there's a lot of those out there that maybe your medical doctor would have. But they would definitely be able to test your D3, your B levels, your iron. C-reactive protein is for inflammation in the body because you do not want to have inflammation. Then we have to kind of dial it back on what foods you're eating. And then sometimes you can have a genetic panel done because hormone-wise, you can just have genetic mutations that are messing with how you process estrogen out of your system or how you break down toxins. And so I did have that done, and I found out that I have what's called an MTHFR mutation, where my body doesn't want to detox very well. So I have to really, really make sure that I don't eat anything with folic acid, okay? because my body won't convert it into what's called folate. And guess where folic acid is? Can anybody throw in there? I don't know. I'll see if you guys, my smart people, where is folic acid really commonly found? I'm going to switch to the next slide, so we'll see if anybody can guess. Okay. Folic acid is found in enriched foods, okay? So that's going to be your breads, cereals, pastas, all the things that, there was a program where we needed to put minerals into our foods, and the enrichment process, folic acid is in there. And so yeah, for sure, I cannot have anything with folic acid. It will, my body says it's a toxin, okay? All right, number 3, you want to ditch the hormone disruptors. These are the common hormone disruptors. I've talked about them already, a couple of them. But I did not talk about conventional dairy with hormones. Many of you might know it's a common situation where they will put hormones into cows for them to produce more dairy, okay, more milk. And that then unfortunately can get passed to us, and that does not benefit us if we have more hormones than we need. So conventional dairy, I really try to make sure you can get organic, non-hormone dairy, and then if you can even go goat or sheep or water buffalo, those are even better, okay? The non-grass-fed organic fatty meats, again, they're being fed really high inflammatory grains, and then they might be having hormones injected. They're probably having antibiotic feeds. They can disrupt our hormones also. Certain coffees can have molds and chemicals and toxins that then also disrupt our hormones. So make sure you're looking for organic, mold-free, no pesticides, sustainably sourced, all that stuff, fair trade. It's very important. If you enjoy coffee, then might as well make it good coffee. And we already talked about plastic, fragrances, and parabens, but those are everywhere. I personally do not, if I'm let's just say if I'm out at work and I need to microwave, which I'm not a fan of microwaving, but if I needed to microwave, it's going to be in a glass container, not a plastic container. And then we already talked about birth control pills, and then, genetically modified foods, sorry, skip that one. Genetically modified foods, because, right, they're gonna have all sorts of pesticides and herbicides, and that's gonna wreck our hormones and our gut. So I always look for non-GMO. Birth control pills, I already talked about that. And then tap water, right? You want filtered good water, because tap water, believe it or not, has everyone's birth control medications that they are urinating out into the public facility, and then it goes into the sewer system, and it does still make its way then into our drinking water, okay? And so then you could be drinking other people's birth control pill hormones. Not cool. And there's even studies being done where they're finding frogs being affected, in the swamps and everything, that they're, having, reproductive issues, that there's mutations, there's all sorts of reasons, but yeah, birth control pills are one of them. And, I spelled that wrong, dedicate. Yes, okay, it's all right. So the 4th thing, we're almost there, you guys. We have a couple more to go. So you want to dedicate supporting the liver and the gut, okay? I already talked about your liver loves bitters. They love cruciferous vegetables, vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine, magnesium, glutathione, choline, pooping, you want fiber, flax seeds, lemons, beets, pre, post, and probiotics, okay? Liver support is its own deal. I'm not going to talk even more about that because it's just, I think I've talked enough about it, but you can find a lot of really good supplements that will support your liver. And the reason estrogen gets made and broken down in the liver, vitamins and minerals are needed to neutralize all the estrogen, right? That excess estrogen, you don't want that. It has to break it down. And then your bowels have to remove it, okay? So poor bowel poor estrogen removal. And we already did talk about that, but I'm just reiterating. Okay, here we go. Here's the supplements that I do suggest to take. And they're very good, I will say. These are really good for just in general hormone support. Magnesium. I always start with magnesium. If you know me, that's the number one thing I prescribe. And I like the various forms of magnesium because not only does it support your liver, helps your muscles, helps your brain, helps your gut, helps your anxiety levels, helps your skin. So we take Epsom salt baths twice a week in our family. And then we also consume magnesium supplements. And then it really prevents a lot of issues in addition to hormone imbalance. Methylated B vitamins, very important because you can have cheap B vitamins that actually can be toxic to your system, especially if you have mutations like I have. You can have it where then they are not beneficial to you. And so methylated B vitamins, look for that. That helps to convert and break down the estrogen and clear it out of your system. And that's amazing. You want that happening. Glutathione is a very high antioxidant. That's something I take on a consistent basis. Helps to get my liver to do its thing to like get rid of all the little toxins and clear them out. Vitamin D is very important for everything. Some of you might not know that vitamin D testing is, you want to make sure you are checking maybe every 3 to 4 months when you are on the supplement. In the summertime, typically people usually have enough vitamin D production with being out in the sun. But if you're still not making it out in the sun, you just want to keep tabs on the vitamin D level. I like to see them about 50 to 60. Okay, that's the level I like to see it at. Anything lower, anything higher, right? There's a sweet spot. Sulfonarine, that is concentrated like broccoli and broccoli sprouts. Very, very, very good for your liver. And so I just ordered some because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I gotta get some sulfonarine. I am eating cruciferous vegetables, but I want to really support the estrogen detoxing out of my body, so I don't need extra estrogen, right? Calcium deglutarate also binds and takes out extra estrogen from my body. I'm always supporting my adrenal glands because that trifecta, I don't want my adrenal glands to be like, stress, affect your hormones and the other places. So I'll make sure my adrenal glands are happy and loved. And so those are called adaptogen herbs. We did talk about adaptogen herbs in the stress management class. Electrolytes to make sure that my body is doing its thing. Potassium, magnesium are huge. Most of us are deficient in both. Coconut water is really good for potassium. I also like to buy a very special potassium drink from Dr. Eric Berg. I like his electrolyte drink because there's no sugar and that's high in potassium. Tastes good. Get that on Amazon or from his website. Liver support, which is milk thistle and acetylcysteine, MSM. So there's so many things out there, right? I don't want to just put you on a bunch of supplements. I want you to work on your diet, but you can definitely start on a lot of supplements to help kind of fill the holes and kind of get you moving in the right direction for hormone balancing, okay? Granted, you've done all the other steps first. The last thing on that one is called topical progesterone creams or Progestins Plus from Young Living. I do really like their, it's a topical oil that you can put in different areas to help boost progesterone. I have a story where I have a patient where she had to go in and get progesterone shots to stay pregnant because she had a history of miscarriages, and she would get the shot in her butt, and it would just really just make her feel really sick, and she would have like episodes of like rage, and it was just, she was like, I don't like it. And so I said, well, let's try the Progestins Plus, and it's from wild yam. Wild yam is like a very common thing that's used for progesterone support. So it's a natural way to get your progesterone levels to be elevated. And a lot of people really like it. When you use progesterone creams, you must note, if you have a regular cycle, if you are doing, if you are every 28 days, you use the progesterone from, like after ovulation to then when you have menstruation. So if you saw those graphs of when your progesterone is supposed to be higher, that's when you use it. You don't use it at the beginning of the month because then you're going to feel weird. You don't need high progesterone levels then. You use it when the graph says that's when your levels are supposed to be high. If you are in menopause and you just want support with progesterone, then you can use it every day, okay? It's just you're bringing your levels up to help your body have some type of that protective hormone, right? Because progesterone is very protective. All right, we're almost there, you guys. The last thing I want to talk about, because some people ask me, what are bioidentical hormones? And it's a very common thing that people do not know about, but they are only prescribed by medical doctors or nurse practitioners, or I think physical or doctors, physicians, assistants. I think they can prescribe it too. Anyways, they are bioidentical hormones. They're still synthetic, but you would go in and they give you these, they're kind of chemically made, they're not naturally derived hormones. And they're usually for people who have been through menopause and are just like, they just feel horrible. They are like, I give up, I just need help. It is a very last resort. If you can balance your hormones naturally through all these other methods, there are so many good supplements out there that will bring your hormone levels up when you're in menopause. I suggest trying them first, and then if all else fails, then work with a natural medical practitioner that knows how to use these and how to properly test you, okay? Because you can still be taking all these and they won't work, and so you have to be very closely monitored with them. Okay, now the last thing that I have to share, because I do it all the time, right? Every one of my classes, I want you guys to have a resource, because I'm well aware my talks are like info-packed and I go a while, but you know what? That's okay, because I know it's good stuff for you and all in one place. And I know many of you will like pause it and come back and like, okay, I gotta learn this. That's the beauty of being able to record and having digital world that we're in. But I have worked really hard on this infographic, okay? You can download this from my link in my, you can download it from my link in my Instagram. And it's the top supplements I suggest. And I even broke it down into all the like foods you can eat and the supplements you can eat during what time of the month, okay? And then like, it was so good. I worked really hard on this one. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. And the next class that I will be talking on is gonna be just a general ask me your health questions, okay? And I feel like this is a good one because we've kind of gone through so much, and now you guys probably have questions. You're like, oh my goodness, where do I start? Or what about this? What about that? Now is the time for you guys to connect with me through the Instagram Live in the next time in 2 weeks. And we're going to ask questions about your health and like what you want to be doing with things and tips and tricks, okay? Because it's about you. All right, this was good. Good to see you guys. We will see you in 2 weeks.